he's struggling with something and it's playing on his performance.
I'm increasingly convinced that they are just having to run a compromise setup all of the time, and they don't seem to be able to develop their way around that.
The car's terrible. The management's questionable. It doesn't seem to have anything positive on the horizon.
It's just kind of bad to worse for that team, isn't it? They're not performing on track. Just problematic and wrong on every level, really, at the moment.
I just feel like what you've said is like the definition of the most solid and reliable driver known to man.
Looking at these drivers, I would back Piastri against pretty much all of them except Verstappen. And I think if I had to put my money somewhere, it'd probably be on Piastri. Hello everyone, welcome to Back of the Grid. I am Chris, joined as ever by Tom.
Hello.
And it's been a very quiet first week of the summer shutdown, which sounds like a great time to do a mid-season review and dust off the Tiermaker again.
Yeah.
As is tradition.
Are we actually halfway through the season or not, though? That's the question.
I think we're slightly over halfway, technically, aren't we?
Yeah. No.
We've had this sort of like, I think this is officially the team shutdown, but we've kind of had two mini summer breaks this year.
Yeah.
There's definitely more races gone than there are to go, but we're halfway enough.
Fair.
If you've not listened to one of these before, if you've seen a Tiermaker, you know what we're doing. We are going to rank every team and driver on the season so far. What is it? A, B, C, D, and S. Sorry. Go on, Tom. Do you want to do an intro?
This sounds like an apt moment for me to start sharing the screen. Pow.
There it is.
Yeah, this is our current ranking system. We've gone through a few of the years of this, but the most recent one that seemed to work and stop it being so complicated was S for top tier. They are like creme de la creme, cannot be doing any better. A was solid and reliable. Can't really fault anything that they're doing, but there's nothing like world beater coming out of their performances. B is just fine, kind of middle of the road, not doing anything particularly great, but also not doing anything badly. Questionable, should definitely be doing better, is C tier. And then D, the famous, shouldn't even be here.
Inspired by Danny Ricciardo, I think, at the time.
I don't know if it was Danny Ricciardo. I can't remember. I mean, a few people have been in it over the years. And, well, I say years. We've only had it as shouldn't even be here since, I want to say last season. Was it last season?
I definitely remember us putting Danny Rick in there. So it's been at least since mid-season.
Maybe been 2 years then. But yeah. I can say that when I looked back at last season's end of season one of these, basically everybody in the shouldn't even be here category went. So,
did we not have Lance Stroll in there?
That was the exception. But
I was going to say
that's definitely shouldn't be here, but will end up remaining for whatever reason.
Because they're going to say there's certain drivers have been in that category multiple times, as I remember. We normally go reverse championship order, so I guess we can do that again this year, which means we're starting with Alpine, who are having a rough old year. Only 20 points scored for them so far this year. Should we quickly get the team out of the way first? Because they're...
Yeah, if you want.
It's just kind of bad to worse for that team, isn't it? In every category. Like, they're not performing on track, but also off track. The way the team and drivers is being managed just seems just problematic and wrong on every level, really, at the moment.
Yeah. These might be a very early candidate for the way that they're currently being run. Shouldn't even be here. The car's terrible. The management's questionable. It doesn't seem to have anything positive on the horizon. It's more like they're pushing to get rid of it than they are to make anything successful out of it. So it is a very early candidate for me for shouldn't even be here. Which I think last year the teams around that sort of mark were probably Sauber and maybe Alpine as well. I can't remember to be sure, but yeah, I think this might be the only team that's down in that category for me this
I
year.
think it has to be,
Or
doesn't
at least
it?
at this point of the season, anyway.
At least this point in time, yeah.
So that was quite an easy discussion, wasn't it? There was no argument
Yeah.
there. Shouldn't
Then
even
we've
be
got
here.
got 3 drivers to do for Alpine. Obviously, Doohan was replaced by Colapinto after 6 races, wasn't it? Doohan did.
Around that, yeah, I think so.
So again, let's do Gasly first, I think. So in terms of like teammate comparisons, he's outdone both of them. In terms of qualifying, 7-2 against Colapinto and 6-2 against Doohan. These numbers I'm going to quote include sprint and Grand Prix data, I should say.
That explains why
That explains
I couldn't
why
make some of the maths work in my head.
Yes.
I was like,
it also excludes things like disqualifications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Race-wise, Gasly was 6-1 up on Doohan and he's 5-4 against Colapinto. He scored all of that team's points this season. One of the bigger qualifying gaps as well, there's been 13 different teammate combinations this season so far, and both Gasly against Colapinto and Gasly against Doohan are the 9th and 10th biggest gaps between teammates. I think Gasly's doing a good job this year in really, really poor machinery. It's really hard for him to show what he can do, but there's kind of glimmers of him being the driver we've seen him in past seasons, I think.
Yeah, I mean, some all right points finishes that have been relatively on merit for his performance, some decent qualifying appearances, just doing what he can with the car. Like nothing massively out there that makes you think, oh, this guy deserves another shot in a championship car. Like nothing to that extreme, but definitely deserves better than what he's got right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like in the middle, like B tier probably feels right for him.
Yeah, I think Gasly doing just fine is pretty apt for his performance at the minute. I'm cool with that.
I think to have got 4 points finishes out of that car is fairly good going.
Yeah, and you got to remember the number of points as well. It's like 20 points, isn't it, that he's got? So they're not even just... It's not just like a handful of 10th places that he's getting there. They're like decently into the points when he can get there. So yeah, it's an all right season for Gasly so far, considering.
Let's do Doohan next because he was the first driver in that seat. He only got 6 races, 2 retirements, and the rest were all finishes outside the points. Like it wasn't a good run he had, but he also didn't have enough time to do anything about it. Like,
yeah, it felt, especially considering how bad the car was.
Yeah,
so early in the season, it felt a little harsh to just have him out immediately. Like, if I suppose the comparison is during that time that Doohan was in the car, Gasly only got 1 points finish, I want to say, in that time. So I think it wasn't necessarily up to that much. He wasn't that far behind Gasly, like usually a place or two in a race. Generally, I think maybe mistakes like those at Suzuka hurt his prospects a little bit, because I can't remember if that ended up being an actual failure on the car or if it was a failure on his part. I think it was he dabbed the brake.
DRS.
Yeah, he dabbed the brake, but not hard enough to actually close the DRS, right? So,
and I think that was kind of the damning thing for him, is that he did make a lot of mistakes and have a few big crashes. But again, he's a rookie, and you need to give a driver time to make those mistakes. And it's a really difficult one with him, because the performances weren't great, but he was in probably the worst car on the grid this year. I think it's pretty fair to say.
Yeah, and it was in every race up to that, in his time on the grid, he finished ahead of Bortoleto, who was in an equally bad car at that time.
Yeah.
For comparison, the races, they both retired in Australia. They both retired in Miami, and then every race in the middle, Doohan was a place. Oh no, sorry, I apologize. Oh yeah, every single race, he was at least one place or better above Bortoleto in what at the time was a similar car.
Yeah.
So,
and then you look at what Bortoleto has achieved since then,
exactly.
and you have to wonder if Doohan could have had a similar upturn in form. Like, I almost feel like I want to put Doohan in questionable because he is literally the biggest question mark this year because we never got to find out what he could be capable of.
Yeah, you, sir, are thinking in a style that I like because that's where I wanted to put him.
Yeah. I think it'd be far
easy.
too harsh to put him down at the bottom.
Yeah, I don't think he was given enough time. And yes, I know you have to perform at this level in order to show your worth. But in a rookie season, you would at least be expected to make it to like maybe halfway or something like that, I think. And again, like you compare to Colapinto, we'll talk about any moment, his numbers in terms of finishing positions aren't that much better than what Doohan was doing. I think the only thing that Bortoleto has going for him is he's not had any significant race ruining crashes or anything like that.
Yeah.
What was the reason? I'm trying to remember what the reason was he couldn't start in Silverstone.
I was like a water leak or something.
It was some sort of failure before the race.
Yeah, because he had a. Oh, that was the problem. He did crash in qualifying. So had a pit lane start as a result, but then he couldn't get out of the pit lane with a water leak.
Yeah.
And you know, Colapinto has been making mistakes as well. Probably as many mistakes as Doohan was making, honestly. In terms of the gap to Gasly, like it's half a tenth. Colapinto's like half a tenth closer than Doohan was on average. Like it's not been. It just feels like a sidestep. Like they made the decision to get rid of Doohan to bring Colapinto in, and it just feels like a complete sidestep. I don't think he's doing any better or worse than Doohan was, and perhaps still would have been. Kind of put him alongside Doohan, I guess, based on that.
I love how you can see where I'm hovering him because of the screen share. You're just like, yeah.
If you're listening to the audio version, by the way, you can always watch the YouTube version to see where Tom's hovering driver's face at the moment. Yeah, I think saying Colapinto is like bottom tier would be a bit too harsh at this point. Again, just because like he's been thrown in with like no notice and he's had 7 races now. Like, I mean, who knows if Flavio's going to decide to have another chop and change? It's real mess. I think it feels right that the drivers are all above where we've ranked the team because the team is the problem there. Not the drivers.
I mean, anyone that knows Formula One to even sort of an entry level, you can see that there's things not right in that team, I think.
Let's move on to Haas in 9th place. 35 points for them so far. 27 of those points scored by Ocon, the rest by Behrman. Really close in qualifying between the two of them. It's 9-8 to Ocon in qualifying at the moment. The average gap between them is 0.072 of a tenth.
Wow.
0.072 of a second.
That must be one of the closest, if not the closest.
Second closest. Only one team pairing is closer than them. I mean, a lot closer in qualifying than they are race-wise. As I say, it's the majority of the points have gone Ocon's way. Ocon's finished ahead of Behrman 10 times to Behrman's 7, which translates to 10th and 19th in the championship, respectively. I think Behrman being that close to Ocon, Ocon's been around for a good number of years now. I think that speaks well of Behrman, I think. He feels like a real a driver of highs and lows, doesn't he, Behrman? He has some really good performances, outdoes Ocon on occasion, picked up some point finishes, but he also just occasionally does really silly things, and he's occasionally just a bit slow. So, I mean, he picked up all his points really early on, like round 2, 3, and 4 was where he scored his points, and he's not scored since then. He had a run of 4 11th places in a row recently, which is a real shame.
He's sort of fairly consistent though. This is the thing, like he's always there or thereabouts, or generally speaking, he's there or thereabouts. So
yeah,
I don't think he's doing too bad. Like the car's not brilliant, but it is capable of decent enough qualifying performances that put them in a good position for a race, and then it seems to have a better balance between that quali pace and the race pace to what it has in the past, where you remember the era of like just recent times with Hulkenberg and Magnussen being able to pull out these stunning qualifying laps between them and get into Q3 with potentially no right in doing so, to be fair, and then just fall away to the back of the pack during the race. They've at least found a balance there. So it's not brilliant, but it's moving in the right direction for Haas. I mean, if I was going to rank the team themselves, I would maybe put them not fine because things aren't quite right, but there's like question marks. I put them in questionable, but they're definitely not like anywhere near as bad as Alpine. I just think that there's maybe room for Haas to improve. I don't know if I'm being harsh or not there though.
Yeah, like the last few years they did show real signs of improvement, and this year they do. It feels like they've plateaued a little bit. I guess it kind of smacks of a team that only has so much of a budget going into the last season of a set of regulations. It almost feels like they're not really putting that much into this year because they've got to build a whole new car for next year. So it's understandable, but yeah, after some real gains for them the last couple of years, it's a little disappointing that they've plateaued and they're back down the bottom. So I'd be okay with C for Haas as a team. I think for Behrman, I don't know. Do you think he's doing enough as a rookie to sneak into B tier?
I think at the moment I'd say yes. It's whether or not he can get his points form back later in the season and maybe turn a few of those 11th places into a 10th every now and then. Because there's definitely some consistency there. There's some solid consistency. And that little run of 11s that you were talking about before, if you look at Ocon in that same sort of period, he's like 9th, 10th, 13th, 15th. So Ocon is actually wildly either or, whereas at least Behrman's been consistent. And I think the only thing for Behrman would be is on those weekends where Ocon's not been in the points in that 9th or 10th position, maybe he needs to be just that little bit closer to the top 10 in order to maybe sneak those 10th places. But I think the fact that he sits bang in the middle of Ocon's average finishing results, it just shows that Ocon's a little bit feast or famine, and Behrman is relatively consistent. Just he's not quite enough to be getting regular points yet. I mean, even his points finishes that he got were like 8th, 10th, and 10th, or something to that effect. So he's definitely around that cusp of bottom end of the points consistently, which I think is enough to say, as a rookie in a car like the Haas, he is doing fine for me at the minute.
Yeah, I kind of feel like both their drivers really are sort of doing what you'd expect of them. Like, Behrman as a rookie is making mistakes, but he's got flashes of speed. Ocon, again, probably a little bit too up and down, as you say, but still kind of a fairly solid performer. He's picking up points where he can. Yeah. I almost feel like they both live in the middle somewhere.
Let's put him in the middle of doing just fine, but behind Gasly. Because if you were to rank the three of them, you would say Gasly's doing the best of the three of them, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We can always move them around later on when we put more in, but I'm happy with that for now. Which brings us on to Racing Bulls, who a little bit disappointing this year, honestly.
Yeah,
Like they showed some real promise in pre-season testing, and I've showed some good speed through practice and qualifying throughout the season, but they just never seem to be able to convert that speed into race finishes, do they?
yeah, it's disappointing because it feels like the car's better than what we're seeing out of it. Um, but I don't want to lay the entirety of the blame on that at the drivers because I feel like the drivers have been somewhat unlucky in a lot of occasions.
Mm-hmm.
And Hadjar had,
Strategically, they've been poor as well. The strategy
yeah,
has let the drivers down a lot.
like Hadjar's obviously the only consistent driver there. I know Lawson's been there quite a while, but like in terms of consistency, until the last few races where Hadjar's been on a little bit of a downturn, that earlier part of the season was looking quite promising for him to be the leading rookie with a number of
Yeah.
points finishes, and some of them like good points finishes as well, like sixth and seventh places, like almost best of the rest performances, which sort of shows you what the car is capable of on its day. But it does feel like when you've got two junior drivers in Lawson and Hadjar, you do need a little bit of team management to get them through certain sessions and certain races. And
Yeah.
it maybe feels like they don't have that at the moment. And it's probably not going to help with Mekies moving over to Red Bull because that's instantly removed any of that they had. Like any, I mean, fair play to Alan Permain. Like he's been around the sport a long time. I'm sure he'll do a good job. But what doesn't help is when that leadership role goes, if there's already some questions around things like the strategy and things like that and being able to support the rookie drivers and stuff. But then having said that, you know, Lawson got a pretty decent eighth place finish in Hungary after the change. So it's not all doom and gloom. I just think that the car seemed to have a lot more potential early in the season that's not been optimized more by the team than by the drivers, I think.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that for sure.
Where does that tier rank them then?
Probably questionable, I think, as
Yeah,
for the team. Like
yeah,
they're picking up points here and there, but yeah, I think they definitely could have executed a lot better.
yeah.
So to move on to the drivers, I mean, we had like 3 races with Hajar and Tsunoda together. For what it's worth, it was 2-1 to Tsunoda in qualifying and technically 2-1, although one of those races, Hajar didn't actually make the start. And then in terms of Lawson and Hajar, qualifying wise, it's 11.3 to Hajar. He's 0.178 ahead on average, which is fifth of 13 teammate pairings. In terms of races, it's 10.3 to Hajar. However, that recent form you mentioned for Lawson means he has actually closed the points gap massively. Lawson's only 2 points behind Hajar now. It's 20 and 22. Hajar I've been really impressed with. He has had a bit of a downturn in form in recent races. Not entirely his fault. He's had a few
Yeah,
gremlins and stuff, but generally I've been like I had going into the season, I don't think I'm alone in this. It very much felt like, oh, we've got a fourth seat. We need to put someone in it. I guess Hadjar's the next in the queue. Like the expectations were very low for him, and he's massively outperformed those. I don't know if I would necessarily call him. I don't know. Would you call him solid or reliable? Has he been that
I
good?
think I think his recent 4 or 5 races have scuppered that a little bit. I
Yeah,
think if he'd consistently been ninth, 10th, 11th in the last 5 races, maybe not necessarily getting points every race, but with the form that he'd had before this, you got to remember that like his lowest finish for the first 10 races or whatever it was 13th. Other than obviously the failure to start in Melbourne. But aside from that, he'd finished like the lowest was 13th, and then now he's got a 16th, a retirement, and a practical retirement, like an unclassified retirement, I think it was. So like it's like it's fallen away. So I think that right now he would be doing fine. Like it's not, especially for a rookie, it's not terrible. There's some really good performances in there, some really good potential. But I think for me at the minute as a rookie, it's kind of like the opposite problem of Behrman. Behrman's like fine because he's really, really consistent. He's just not quite getting enough speed to be in the points regular. Hadjar's got the other problem where he's getting in the points and with the speed, but then the other side is like wildly opposite. There's like almost no consistency, or at least it's either really good or it's really bad. It's like highs and lows, a bit like the Ocon thing I was saying before, I guess. Like the points finishes are really, really good, but then the bad runs are really, really bad. But it feels a little harsh. It's not necessarily always directly down to him specifically. It's sometimes it's car related, but I think that's why for now I'd put him in like a higher end of doing fine with Gasly maybe.
Yeah, I can go with that.
Let's put him next to his countrymen. In fact, all three of them are together there, look.
Yeah, actually.
All the three French guys together.
And then as for Lawson, he obviously had an awful start to the year. It couldn't have gone much worse for him.
Yeah.
Dropped after only 3 races back down to racing balls. It took him a while to kind of find his feet again. Then he had that points finish in Monaco, and he's kind of seems to have kicked on since then. I think it's maybe going away now, but I almost think after his kind of Red Bull demotion, he was. This might sound like I'm reading too much into it, but it almost felt like Lawson was driving emotionally, like he was driving kind of with a point to prove or driving angry. And there's a lot of some pretty aggressive stuff from him this year, and I think that's maybe calmed down a bit. I think for me, at the moment at least, I think he sits in C tier for me currently.
What he's done recently has definitely been better, but I think that he at least appears to be finding the form that we saw flashes of in his standings the previous season when we saw him briefly.
Yeah.
I think that I still stand by that. I think that promoting him straight to the Red Bull seat over Tsunoda was probably the wrong thing to be doing. And had it been the other way around, he'd probably been getting these kind of results alongside Hadjar most of the season, would be my guess, just based on how he's performing now. But that doesn't excuse, I guess, the poor form from him in that period. Like you say, sort of driving angry, driving emotionally, and not getting results, and hitting other people's races. To be fair, they're like incidents where he's come together with people that have potentially hurt other people's races and things like that. So, yeah, I think maybe a little higher in questionable than the 2 Alpine rookies, because we've seen more glimmers of what we expect from him in recent times. But yeah, I can't put him on the same level as the likes of Hadjar and Behrman, at least not at the moment.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And that is it for Racing Balls, isn't it? Which moves us on to Sauber. Sauber, who are 7th in the championship, currently on 51 points. So just one behind Aston Martin and a little bit ahead of the pack behind them. Started the season, if not worse, team on the grid, probably slightly above Alpine. It was thereabouts.
It was between the two of them early in the season, wasn't it?
But they've really showed signs of improvement this year. Probably the improvement we expected over the last year or two since the Audi takeover. but it definitely feels like they finally got the right people in the right positions, and we are seeing the fruit of that. Particularly Jonathan Wheatley being in charge seems to be doing a very good job there. I've been really impressed with with their trajectory this season, some of the results they've pulled off.
Yeah, I mean, since their upgrades in Spain, they've had at least one car in the points every weekend.
Yeah.
And they've scored the podium. I mean, yes, they've only had one double points finish in Austria, but in terms of Grand Prix finishes, they've had a car in the points every single weekend. And when you compare that to them finishing 18th, 19th, back of the pack for the, whatever it was, 8 races before that.
And the last 2 seasons.
Well, yeah, that's a pretty stellar turnaround. I think they're in the same difficult position as like Haas, but with the advantage of a manufacturer coming in to help with what's happening next season. So they've got a little bit of affordability to be able to invest time in this season, which is why I think they're probably leapfrogging teams like Haas, going from being below them to now being above them. But I think that's a sign of a strong team in the making. They've made a lot of changes of personnel, like you say, with the Audi influence coming in, and Audi starting to build the team that they want from a management perspective. And I think that now the car's coming to be a better car to race. I think you're seeing Hülkenberg being able to do what we know he's capable of, and you're starting to see the true pace of Gabby Bortoleto. So I think that these would be the first team that I'd put in like doing fine, even though it was a bit of a ropey start. I think the significance of that upgrade and for it to be effective, that's the sign of a team that's doing all right, in my opinion, because
I agree.
Things didn't start well, but they've managed them, they've developed through them, and they've made a significant improvement. And I think that's fine. It's not, yes, you could say, oh my God, it's incredible they got a podium, but it's a very circumstantial podium. It's not going to be something that you see every week. This is not like McLaren's recovery.
No,
it's
not
not
quite
to
on the
that
same
extent.
level.
So,
and I suppose the argument against putting them any higher than that is that, given the backing they have now, they probably should have had this kind of turnaround well before they did. But ultimately, they have, and they are impressing this year. So,
yep.
The driver stats for Sauber make for really interesting reading this year. So you've obviously got Hülkenberg, one of the most experienced heads on the grid, and Bortoleto, a rookie. Bortoleto is actually ahead in qualifying 10-7, albeit the average gap between them is 0.036, which is the tightest teammate pairing on the entire grid. In terms of races, it's 9-7 to Hülkenberg. He's got 37 points to Bortoleto's 14. I mean, impressed with both of them. Talk about Hülkenberg first, I guess. Hülkenberg's qualifying this year has been poor. Compared
to what you expect of him, definitely.
Yeah. His season's kind of characterized by really good drives from the back row to pick up some points, essentially, which is, it just kind of makes you wonder what he could do if he actually started qualifying well.
Yeah.
Obviously, the podium was a huge high point, but he's had 4 other points finishes that have all been really good. You know, that 5th place in Spain as well was super impressive.
Yeah.
7th in Australia at the start of the season, which in many ways was by virtue of just keeping it on the road. But even so, that's when the car was at its worst, and he still pulled off that 7th place. Hülkenberg's a weird one because the highs are so high, but the lows are quite disappointing for him.
Oh, so we're not putting him in top tier then? I'm joking.
Sadly, this is not the British Grand Prix review, otherwise.
Yeah. It's a difficult one with Hülkenberg because with what he's done with the car in the races, that makes me want to put him in solid and reliable. Because in his terms of his race performance, generally, that's where I feel like he's been. But your point about qualifying is a very valid one, and he's not been what you would expect him to be in qualifying. And obviously got the closest gap to his teammate of anyone, with his teammate being a rookie. But is that just that Gabby is very quick in quali trim and is able to extract as much out of the car as Hulk is? Or is it that Hulk's underperforming a little? That's what's a little bit of a difficult read there, I think, generally.
Yeah. It's tricky. I think for now, I think we can just about put him in A tier.
Ooh, I like it.
I'm gonna say we'll put him there for now, and we'll see what happens.
I think that anybody else we put in A tier probably stacks above Hulkenberg, just because of the qualifying thing. From anyone else that we put in there, unless we find a reason for someone to be borderline like what Hulk is. But I think everyone else will kind of go ahead of him in that tier.
And then for Bortoletto, at the moment, I think he's probably B tier for me.
Top end?
Towards the top, yeah. If the current trajectory he's on continues, then by the end of the season he will have moved up. Definitely above Hadjar, but I think Bortoletto at the moment is my rookie of the year. He's doing exactly what you want a rookie to do. He started off, a good chunk off the pace, making mistakes, and he's just gradually chipped away at it and improved. And out qualifying Hulkenberg over the season so far is super impressive. Picking up some really good points finishes now as well. But I think he's in the middle still for now.
Okay, that's fair.
If you're happy with that.
I'm happy with that.
Right, Aston Martin. They are down in 6th place in the championship, just a point ahead of Sauber. In qualifying, it's 16-1 to Alonso. Average gap is 0.328, which is sort of in the middle. It's 8th of 13 in terms of driver pairings. Only 9-8 to Alonso in terms of race finishes, and they are, as of the last race, they are on equal points. 26.
Can I point out though? Yes, it's 8th, but the 5 bigger gaps than Alonso to Stroll are Gasly to a rookie, Gasly to a rookie, Russell to a rookie, Verstappen to a guy struggling with the Red Bull, and Verstappen to a rookie who struggled with the Red Bull.
That's a good point, yeah.
Lance Stroll's been on this grid a long time. To be that far down that list and have people closer together above him, especially when you got like Bortoletto being so close to Hulk. Now, whether that is Hulk not being as good as he normally would be in quali, open for debate. But I mean, Behrman to Ocon. I said both their names really weird then. Behrman to Ocon. Again, super close. Like, that's 2 rookies who are really close to teammates who have been around the grid a significant amount of time. Stroll himself has been around the grid a significant amount of time and can't seem to get anywhere near Alonso.
It's a fair point.
I think that it being 8th of 13 doesn't quite tell as big a story as it actually does.
It's a big jump as well. Like less than 2/10 cover the smallest gap up to 7th smallest gap, and then it's a whole almost 10th and a half then up to the Alonso and Stroll gap of 3 and a bit tenths. So it's a very good point you make. What do you think, Aston as a team? Bit disappointing again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not where it should be, is it? I mean, I know they're going through a transitional period at the minute and all that kind of stuff. Probably a huge amount of focus going into next year's regs with Newey and so on. But I would expect them to be not behind Williams and more ahead of Sauber is kind of where I would see them. Like, they should be relatively comfortable in 5th place behind the big manufacturer and like top teams. And I think that Williams been as far ahead of them as they are, despite Williams having like really hot and cold weekends sometimes where like they're not getting results, especially for Sainz. Like Sainz has had what feels like a really bad run, and yet Aston Martin haven't been able to capitalise on that. I mean, I'm just looking at the difference between them now in terms of performances. I mean, to be fair, Alonso didn't score points until after the updates in Spain, did he? And then
Yeah.
that's where Alonso's kind of refound something with the car, and Stroll's been a bit. I mean, Australia wet conditions. We know he kind of comes about all right in those conditions. Uh, Silverstone, wet conditions. We know he normally comes around in wet conditions. Outside of that, you've got 7th in Budapest and 9th in China. Like you can't just be waiting for it to rain to get a decent performance out of somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be you're getting decent performances out of somebody consistently, and then the wet is maybe where he can take it to that next level and take advantage and get a good performance, like a Nico Hulkenberg or whatever, something like that. It's very different scenarios. So I think teams a little bit in the questionable category, kind of with Haas and RB, because I think they should be doing better, but it's not awful. So probably maybe above the two of those in terms of teams.
Yeah.
Or are they doing fine because they're in a transition period and they're kind of with Sauber?
No,
I don't know.
I don't think they're any higher than C.
So you think they should be doing better, and that's the key differentiator here. Sauber are evolving and working problems into solutions and getting points.
Yeah.
Aston Martin are a little stagnant and therefore not as fine.
That's kind
as
of where
Sauber.
I'm at, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And I suppose we always have to remember that the way that we do these rankings is kind of based on not just pure results, but also expectations. Like, you've got some rookies in there that are doing just fine. Their results maybe aren't as good as, say, someone that we might put in questionable or down the bottom end of doing fine or something like that. But they're kind of there on the merit of, well, what do you actually expect of them as a rookie in that car? Like, for that scenario, they are doing fine.
Otherwise, we'd just be putting them all in championship order, and that's not very interesting.
Exactly. So yeah, team questionable. Alonso, I want to say fine, because even when the car wasn't that great, he was fairly consistently around 11. Like, he was always knocking on the door of points and just never quite able to make it work.
Yeah.
But
I think...
Is he a bit checked out again? Like, he goes through these phases of when the car's not great, just being checked out. And I feel like he's in one of those phases right now.
I think he is. I think we've seen a lot more mistakes from Alonso this year than we used to as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not been a great year for him, honestly. Is it enough to call him questionable? I don't know if it's... I don't know. What do you think is quite that bad for him?
I think him being as close to the points as he was and then consistently in the points since the upgrade, he's probably worked with the team to get the car back in a position that it can score points. So I would say that's probably where he scrapes back some B tier, doing just fine.
Yeah, okay, that's
points.
fair.
Because it will no doubt be him that's helped develop the car back into a window where he can score with it, not Lance Stroll. So I would sort of put him around about Ocon, maybe, like,
yeah, somewhere in the middle of
that. Yeah. And then do we just have to put Lance Stroll as the obligatory shouldn't even be here as per usual?
So.
Or is that just being harsh for the sake of being harsh? I feel like it is one of those. We've talked about, I mean, you've talked about it a lot this year. Is this whole, my wrist is causing me pain and not being able to drive in certain sessions and stuff. Is this Aston Martin setting up a way of removing him from the team without having to say we've fired an owner's son? Like, is that what the angle is?
It still feels likely to me. Yeah, he just doesn't seem that... like, on paper, he's equal points with Alonso. He's 4 points finishes this season. But as you said earlier, look at those points finishes. How many of them are down to the weather conditions? And Like you
of
said earlier,
people
you can't just
failing
sit
out.
around waiting for it to rain and then be
Yeah.
okay or better than most in those conditions. I think he has to go down there, unfortunately.
Sorry, Lance.
Sorry, Lance. Right, where does that bring us to? Williams.
Yeah.
So Williams currently sitting in fifth place on 70 points. They've got a 18-point buffer to Aston Martin. We talked about this recently, they've really tailed off, haven't they? Like they started the season looking pretty good, like the
Yeah.
best of the rest kind of thing. And I mean, they've admitted they're done with upgrades now. And it just feels like they're desperately trying to hold on now. Like the performance has really dropped off. It's kind of the reverse of some of the other teams we've talked about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a case of the Aston updates and the Sauber updates are stealing points from Williams now that they were getting comfortably before. So they were like comfortably in the bottom end of the points, 8th, 9th, 10th at the start of the season, and then able to take advantage of things going wrong for people ahead of them in that top 10, and then claw like 5th place, 6th place finishes out of it. But that was before the likes of Aston Martin and Sauber upgraded, and since Spain, it's not been terrible for Williams, but it's also not been great. Like, for the vast majority of races before Spain, they had both cars in the points. It was going fine, like no
Yeah.
problems realistically. Since Spain, that's not happened once, and they've had only 3 points finishes across both cars. So I don't necessarily think it's Williams that are getting worse. It's obviously those that were below them getting better.
They're standing still, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the disappointing bit is they're a little stagnant while the other teams are developing to catch up. But again, if this is like the midfield way, isn't it? Like there's elements of Haas and Sauber that are really heavily focused on next year's car. Sauber have just been able to maybe get away with doing some development on this year's car because of the Audi involvement for next year. And there's a little bit of a resource split there almost.
Yeah.
Feels like Aston Martin are in a similar position to Williams where they're just doing like, they've done minor upgrades to get themselves back on the pace a little bit from Spain, but they'll be doing little to not anymore going forward, probably, to then focus next year's car again. So I don't know if he's as bad as questionable.
I was going to say, I
I think they're in that doing fine camp. They're maybe just a little bit they're on the same pace as Sauber, but I think the thing is that the form is obviously flipped because Williams came out of the gates at that level, and Sauber and Aston have caught up. And Sauber obviously started poorly and have done a decent upgrade to catch up. But I feel like Williams and Sauber are about equal at the moment.
they're sort of like they're on opposite trajectories, and they've kind of met recently. So yeah, I think BT for Williams for now, I think is fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Then for Sainz and Albon, it's 9-7 in qualifying to Albon, average gap of 0.085, which is the third closest pairing on the grid. In terms of races, though, 11-5 to Albon, 54 points to only 16 for Sainz, which equates to 8th and 16th in the championship, respectively. Quite surprising. I think everybody... The prevailing thought before this season was that they were going to be a very close pairing. Albon was going to be really tested with someone like Sainz coming in. And I think Albon has done a fantastic job this year. I mean, you look at his results, like he had 5th places in Australia, Miami, and Imola. Then he had that 6th in Belgium recently. Really, really good, solid drives. There was that string of retirements sort of partway through the season he had, which is a shame. But yeah, I've been really impressed with Albon this year. Just continues to be he's just got a good like core speed and reliability. Really, like he can just kind of pump out the laps, which is what you need to do in that kind of midfield position. I think he might be an A tier for me, Albon.
Yeah, I think Albon's comfortably there. There's, like you say, there's a little bit of a blip run in that mid part of what we've had so far. It was like Spain, Canada, Austria, that like little triple run.
I'm trying to remember what those retirements were for, actually.
Good question. Because I was trying to think about the same thing whilst we were talking about it.
But I know at least one was mechanicals, because Williams have had more than their fair share of mechanical issues this season.
So Spain was collision damage. Can't remember what from.
Though. Oh, was that one of Liam Lawson's adventures, I think, in Spain?
Oh, could have been with the side pod. Was that the one where he damaged Albon's side pod?
I think it may well have been.
So that was that one. Canada was an engine problem.
That's what I'm thinking
towards the end of the race. And then Austria was, again, an engine problem just earlier in the race. So, yeah, two of those. Well, I mean, three of those aren't really his fault.
Yeah.
If you remember the one in Spain, they did try and run it as far as they possibly could. But
yeah,
because it was a bit of a mad lunge into turn one, I think, wasn't it?
That's what I remember.
If I remember right. So, yeah, I think he's easily up there and solid and reliable. I'd actually put him above Hülkenberg at the minute because
I'd agree.
Because the qualifying's there as well. He's got like a fairly rounded off package there.
Yeah.
Sainz, however, it's difficult this one because honestly, right now on his current form, I think he falls into the questionable bit.
I agree. It's been a tough old season for him.
Yeah. Like now the car's got competitors. It's almost showing up Sainz's uncomfortableness with it, let's say. Yeah. Whereas Albon's kind of been able to continue finishing in the points. Sainz has had a really tough time. And yes, it's not all been his fault, and some of it's been with the car and stuff like that, same as Albon. But he's just not been able to make the best of the results when he has had the car with him and he has had a clean weekend. So it pains me a lot to do it, but I think he's going to have to be like top end of questionable.
I think so as well. It took him too long to get to grips with the car when it did have pace.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of too late because they've stopped developing it and he's kind of stuck with what he's got. So, yeah, disappointing year for Sainz so far, for sure.
Yeah.
Who does that bring us to? Red Bull. Another one with multiple drivers. I mean, for what it's worth, Verstappen and Lawson was 3-0 to Verstappen, as you'd expect. I believe that was the biggest. That's the biggest gap of the season. Over those three races, Verstappen was on average 8.8 tenths ahead of Lawson, which is a ludicrous gap. But I don't think we're going to glean much for this from comparing Verstappen and Lawson at this point in time. Verstappen Tsunoda, it is 14-0 in qualifying to Verstappen. 6/10 gap between them on average, which is the second biggest gap on the grid. Race-wise, it's 12-2 to Verstappen, 187 points to just 10 for Tsunoda. Red Bull having a really tough year. I think it seems to me, I think we can stop talking about Red Bull only developing a car for one driver, because at the moment I don't think they're developing a car for any driver. Like the results of Verstappen he's getting right now seem to be because he has the skills to drive around the problems that car has.
They're starting to struggle though as well. Like you've only got to look at earlier in the season when he was able to get it on the podium and mix it with the McLarens a bit more, but then in some scenarios recently, yes, he's been able to extract something ridiculous out of it in quali or sprint races, but then Grand Prix conditions, it's falling backwards. I mean, you only have to look at, what was it? It was Silverstone he was on pole but finished 5th. Is that right? If I remember right?
At best, I think, yeah.
And then Belgium won the sprint but was fourth in the Grand Prix.
I mean, he's got 2 wins this year, Japan and Imola, both of which were a result of being P1 out of the first couple of corners and
Yeah.
then holding on at tracks where it's incredibly difficult to make an overtake. Not to take anything away, they were very, very good drives from him, but yeah, like there's some circumstance around those wins, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, as a team, questionable as well, I guess.
Yeah, I think at this moment in time, they're in a bit of turmoil. And the Mekies move could work out really well for them, replacing Horner with him. But we need to see what happens for the rest of the season. And I don't think there's going to be a huge amount that they can do with the car this season. Again, they're in this sort of boat of there's not much more we can do here. Let's focus on next year and new regs with a new, because they've got a new aerodynamicist head because Newey's gone. They've got a new team head because Horner's gone. There's tons of other people that they've lost over recent years that have gone on to try and forge their own careers elsewhere, like your Wheatleys and so on. So
Yeah.
it's a team that managerially has been really gutted to the point that you do have to question, like, will it be able to recover? Like, you only have to think about, maybe not the best example, but a similar one is the likes of all the big successful names that were at Ferrari during Schumacher's era. As soon as those managerial names started to move away from Ferrari into the late noughties, things have fallen away and never recovered since. Red Bull could be potentially about to hit into that same sort of 20-year slump that Ferrari's been in.
Yeah.
Not saying they will.
It's entirely possible.
It's a little bit like doom mongering and stuff like that. But when you look at the kind of people that have moved away from that team that have been bringing it its success, the only thing that's probably going to keep him in success right now is Max. And although he's committed to staying there next year to see how things go with the Ford engine program and so on, he's only going to put up with so much before he starts looking elsewhere. That's just a fact. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
He's either gonna just leave the sport completely and go to do something else, or he's gonna find another team because he is a winner that wants to win, and nothing else is good enough. And he will not enjoy being in a car that isn't capable of winning. Let's put it that way. And yes, this car might have won races this season or won sprints or been on pole, but like you said, there's a lot of circumstance around some of that. I think the only bits that have been like real, just true moments of Max doing what Max does is probably the pole positions and the qualifying results. That car just nowhere on race pace at the minute, and it's a shame because it's hindering a great driver at the minute.
It is, and the fact that Verstappen, he's got 2 wins, another 3 podiums, I think. 2 wins and 3 seconds. He's got at least 2 or 3 pole positions. He's still doing almost a more impressive job than we've seen him doing in seasons where he's had the car underneath him, because we know he doesn't have the car underneath him this year, and yet he's still pulling these things off. Like, it's not very often these we've not had Max in the top tier. Like, have we been able to see enough of him this year to still put him there? Is that crazy?
I think with the results that he is getting out of that car, I would still consider him to be there.
I think so as well. I think he has to go.
Especially when we're putting Red Bull as far down as questionable for the way it performs. And like, you just have to look how much his teammates are struggling with it. Like, even going back to Perez last year, this problem probably started last year. Perez fell away really considerably, and everyone, I mean, us included, were like, we think Perez is done now, and probably just needs to move along, and he's shown that he's maybe not what we thought he was. But when you look at the results of Tsunoda and Lawson in the brief stint he was in the car, it's almost the same story. It's not that far off the same story. So yeah, I think Max is up there, but then that leaves us in the awkward position of where should Yuki be? And I think it's a tough one because those first 3 or 4 races that he had after switching teams, he actually manages to scrape some points. And you think, okay, maybe there's something in this. Maybe it's just not that, the pressure of that team is not for Lawson. Maybe the switch will do them good. Yuki had not quite had the luck to score the points in the first few races with RB, but in the better car, quote unquote, better car, he's been able to start scoring some points, looks promising. But then it's just gone downhill from there, and he's not been able to maintain that at all. And the qualifying has been probably the biggest downfall of it. And because we know he's got no race pace, this is where Max excels and proves that he's that top tier compared to someone like Yuki. Because what Max does is Max goes and puts it on pole or at least on the front row, and then falls backwards to like 4th or 5th on race pace. Yuki is qualifying like 17th
at best
or something, and then falling backwards to 18th, 19th, or staying in 17th because people around him are DNFing. Like, it's not. It unfortunately puts Yuki in questionable for me around that sort of thing of, yes, we know the car's bad, but he's got to be doing better with it, I think. I don't think it's that bad.
He's got a lot stacked against him as well.
True, and
like
there is the fact that there's bits that have been on Max's car longer, and Yuki's only just starting to see them. Like there was the floor change that Mekies put in for Budapest, and there's the front wing change that Max got before that I think Yuki's going to be having from Zandvoort onwards. So there's definitely a discrepancy in the actual car that the two drivers have. But when you see the difference between Max before and after those upgrades, I don't think it's that significant that as soon as Yuki's got him, he's suddenly going to be in the points every weekend. That's not going to happen.
And, if you look at both drivers' results, like Yuki hasn't scored points since Imola with his last points, which is the last race that Max won. But that also coincides with Max's results starting to drop off. Since Imola, he's had one podium since then. The rest have been like scraping all the points positions. But the field is so tight, you don't have to be that much slower than your teammate to be way, way behind. So, and as much as I think he probably does need to go in C tier, the deck is really stacked against him at the moment, which is really difficult for him.
The thing that's interesting about that, though, is when you look at the results that Yuki had when he scored the points, Max was... Oh, I'm reading the results the wrong way around. Never mind. I was looking at Norris's results. So I was like, there was a weird correlation between Max being second and Yuki being 10th, and then Max being third and Yuki being 9th for those races. But I was looking at Norris's results, so... Ignore me. Never mind.
Right. Have we put him in there?
Where are we putting him? No.
I think he's questionable. I think he has to go in C tier for me.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you were trying to argue for him to be doing fine and it was the car's fault.
No, I do agree that he needs to be there. It's just, it's hard to see. It's hard to see how he gets out of it.
Who's doing... Where is he in this C tier, though? Because I don't think he's above Sainz or Lawson. He's maybe like between...
He's got to go next to Lawson because they've both done an equally poor job in the Red Bull, I think. So he's one side of Lawson or the other, I think.
It's hard, isn't it? Because he didn't get enough time in the RB to maybe show what he could do in it, like what Lawson's
At least Lawson's showing signs of improvement.
Yeah.
Which, again, Yuki is doing. It's just not enough.
Yeah. Let's put him just behind Lawson for now.
Yeah. Right. Mercedes.
Pointy end.
Getting to the pointy end. Mercedes, third in the constructors. In a pretty tight battle with Ferrari for second, actually. The gap's extended a little bit in recent races. It's Ferrari 260, Mercedes 236. Mercedes obviously picked up that one win in Canada.
Yep.
Driver-wise, qualifying, it's 15-2 to Russell. The average gap is just over half a second, which is only Verstappen has outdone a teammate in terms of qualifying gap more than Russell has. 17-0 in terms of race results between Russell and Antonelli, which equates to 172 points versus 64, and fourth place and seventh place in the championship. Mercedes are... I mean, they're all over the place, aren't they? Like they've won a race with a double podium, and they've also been not even making Q3 and like plummeting down the order.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think in the grand scheme of things, they're probably in that sort of doing fine, but because it's not as bad as some of the other teams, but you definitely expect more from them. But it's weird, isn't it? This ground effect era, just full stop, has never really suited the Mercedes.
They've never got it right.
Like they've ever since day one, they appear to have been trying to develop themselves out of a hole. That's just where they've been since the beginning. So it's difficult, but it's definitely not as bad as they have been, but it's also not as good as they have been. And this whole thing of, you know, if the temperatures are over 25 degrees, we know the Mercedes is going to struggle for points. If it's under, it's got a chance of a podium. That is a wild operating window to have your car in.
Yeah.
To be that wildly out based on ambient temperature and track temperature is wild. And it's what leads to results like the Canada win, but it's also what leads to results like barely getting any points in Silverstone when it's warmer than expected. Oh, no, wait, that was the rain, wasn't it? Sorry, which one was the one that was warmer than expected? Where they just fell away. They struggled in Monaco as well. That was bad. Trying to think.
Austria, they didn't have a great time.
It was still fifth, though, wasn't he? Russell was still fifth in that.
But, I mean, to open up the driver conversation, I think a lot of that is the virtue of Russell having a phenomenal season.
Interesting.
I think Russell's having the best season of his career, at least so far, and I think he's dragging that team higher in the standings than they probably should be.
Yeah, I mean, Antonelli's definitely struggling with his first year, isn't he? And it's to be expected with a rookie in a car that's so temperamental. You've got to give him some leeway. It's just a shame that it started out so well initially, kind of then went through a weird spell of something like 5 retirements with a podium randomly dotted in the middle of it. But again, that podium comes in Canada, which is the race George won, and it's all because of the really cool temperatures. I mean, outside of then, since Emilia-Romagna, since Imola, that's the only highlight, isn't it? There's not really, it's barely been a points finish other than that for Antonelli.
No,
I think some of that is definitely down to the car. It's a difficult one.
The Miami sprint, I think, was a perfect microcosm of Antonelli's season. Like, he put it on sprint pole, kind of schooled everyone, was super duper impressive, and then massively overdrove it into turn one and completely cocked it up and plummeted down the order. So, but maybe I'm being a bit too nice to rookies this year, but I would still say he's in B tier. He's doing just fine because he is a rookie and he's doing what you would expect rookies to do. But for all of his mistakes, the raw speed is really, really impressive.
Between Bortoletto and Hadjar at the minute, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think all three of those are doing very good rookie jobs at the moment, so I'm happy to put them there.
And then Mercedes as a team, they're kind of doing fine. It's not as much of a shambles as Red Bull or some of the other teams, but it definitely should be a lot better.
They just reminded me, actually, going back to the whole ground effect thing. I saw the other day that as things currently stand, it'll depend on how they score for the rest of the season. But the moment they are on track, that the zero pod car actually might be their most successful ground effect era car. Because like you say, they've just been chasing gremlins and trying to fix problems ever since then, basically.
Bring back the zero side pods.
Right. I've already started to make my case. I think Russell needs to go in the top tier this season. I think Russell's doing a phenomenal job.
I'm just going to look through his results. He got podium Australia, wet. China, podium, can't remember the weather, average.
Mm-hmm.
Bahrain, podium, cooler night race, or dusk race, isn't it, Bahrain?
Yeah.
Miami, relatively hot, podium. Canada, cold, win. And Budapest, somewhere in the middle. Bit warmer, a bit cooler than we maybe expect for that time of year. Podium. And then the rest of the time is about fifth, give or take. Sometimes a fair bit lower, but it's hard. I just don't know if I've seen anything from George that makes me go like, wow, like it does Max. I think that's the only argument I have is he's definitely been his usual Mr. Reliable self. And I think the consistent like fourth and fifth place finishes on those weekends when the car's not on the same pace as it is in the cooler conditions is where that comes from. I just genuinely can't think of anything that's like kind of made me go wow this season with George.
I think that's kind of why for me I'm so impressed, because like one of the memes of the year is George Russell does nothing, gets a podium. But I think that speaks to how consistently metronomically quick he's been this year. Like if he's got a car that's capable of being the third fastest car, he will be third fastest and he will pump in those laps. And my biggest criticism of Russell over the last few years has been that he's been quick, but he's made way too many mistakes. And I'm struggling to think of mistakes at all he's made this year. I think he's really taken a step forward.
Yeah, that's fairly true. I don't think he's made many, if any, significant mistakes like he has in previous years. Like he's been in really strong positions and ditched it into a wall on a few occasions, or a Bottas or something. And we're not really seeing any of that. I just feel like what you've said is like the definition of the most solid and reliable driver known to man. Like the fact that he's just always there consistently, but nothing. I don't know. It's hard.
It is hard.
I'll tell you what. We'll put him at what? How about if we put him at the front of solid and reliable?
If it lets you.
If it lets me, it won't let me put him above Alexander Albon. We'll put him there for now.
Yeah.
And we'll maybe see what we do with the other drivers, and that might shimmy him around a little bit.
Totally.
Because there's 4 drivers to go, right?
Yes. Which brings us on to Ferrari. As I said, currently second in the constructors, despite not picking up a win this year to Mercedes 1. In terms of qualifying, it's 12.52 Leclerc, average gap of 0.184, which is pretty middling.
Middle of the road, yeah.
Pretty middle of the road in terms of teammate gaps. 12.4 to Leclerc in races as well. They're just one position apart in the championship. 151 points to 109. I mean, despite them being second at the moment, fairly disappointing all round at Ferrari, I think. I think we all expected more from them this year.
I think the car's had issues it shouldn't, and the strategy has been typical Ferrari strategy at some point. It tempts me to put them down in questionable. Despite them being second in the standings overall, it feels like they're only there based on others just making mistakes as well. Like, I think if anybody other than McLaren was on point, they would be ahead of Ferrari. and Ferrari are just there on the basis that other people are making similar mistakes, which means I definitely can't put them any higher than doing fine, despite them being second in the championship. And it does tempt me to put them in questionable, but I don't know if I'm just being dramatic at that point.
Yeah, it's like they're second despite their own best efforts. Like,
Yeah.
it definitely. I'm increasingly convinced that they are just having to run a compromise setup all of the time because of the ride height issues that got them that disqualification, and they don't seem to be able to develop their way around that strategically. Again, it's like another consistent meme Ferrari strategy. And over the last couple of years, they were making strides in the right direction. Whereas this year, they seem to be back to some of their old tricks. Communication wise, seems as bad as ever. They're such a frustrating team. Are they dropping the ball as much as Red Bull have this year? I guess not, just by virtue of them still.
I mean,
but again, is this the case of the drivers are out doing more than the car and
I
the
think
team
this
are
is
capable of?
the problem, isn't it? Like, if you purely looked at numbers, like I'm literally looking at the wiki page of the current drivers' standings, and you've got green across the board there. There's a China disqualifications, which is a shame, but it is what it is. Can't remember where they were in the race before those happened. Were they like
I want to say like
fifth,
fourth, fifth,
like
sixth, something.
yeah. And then literally the only other thing outside of the points is Leclerc 14th, Silverstone, and Hamilton 12th, Budapest. Now, when you think about how bad of a season it feels like Lewis Hamilton is having, he's been in the points every other race. So maybe me saying Ferrari are questionable is a little bit dramatic because...
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But how much of this, like I say, is down to everybody else around them just dropping the ball more? And just nobody, like... I don't know, it's a really weird one. Like, I think at the most, I can't put them any better than doing fine. That's for sure. I don't know where you want to put them, but that's the absolute most.
I think they probably do scrape into fine, actually.
They're probably in that same sort of window as Mercedes of Ferrari just consistently average. Like, Mercedes have got this weird window where some races they're tons better than Ferrari and can even compete with the McLaren, and then other races they're behind them and maybe even behind the Red Bull in some cases, with Max at least. But then Ferrari are just like consistently fifth and sixth, and it's by virtue of the Mercedes not being as good on a given weekend that Leclerc can maybe go get a podium of some kind. Like, if you look at as an example, the races that Leclerc's got podiums, Russell was 5th to Leclerc's 3rd, 11th to Leclerc's 2nd, 4th to Leclerc's 3rd, 5th to Leclerc's 3rd, 5th to Leclerc's 3rd. The other way around, Russell was 3rd to Charles Leclerc's disqualification, 3rd to Charles Leclerc's 8th, 2nd to his 4th, 3rd to his 7th, 1st to his 5th, and 3rd to his 4th. So, like, the consistency there for me is that Ferrari is 4th, 5th, 6th on a regular basis. I mean, I'm looking at Hamilton's results: 7th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 6th, 4th, 4th, 7th. Like, that is where that car is legitimately. And it's by virtue of Charles being on form and the Mercedes not that he's picking up podiums on occasion.
Mercedes form is yo-yoing.
He should have potentially won in Budapest, but due to poor setup decisions and what they did from a strategy point of view, they maybe threw that away, and it let the Mercedes back in. But so this is where it comes to the drivers after we've sort of put them in doing fine, because it's not terrible for Ferrari, but it definitely could be a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I want to put Charles Leclerc straight into that solid and reliable category.
He's very close to Russell for me. I think they're both doing a really great job this year.
I think you can't really argue with what he's doing with that at the moment. Hamilton becomes contentious because going into this, before reading out the results I've just read out, I was genuinely ready to put Hamilton into CC questionable with Sainz.
It feels so much worse than it looks. Yeah.
And it's really weird because if you look at it on the paper, statistics of points finishes and compare them in that regard, like, they're not that far apart. Yes, Leclerc's finishing ahead a lot more, and yes, I suppose he's got like 40 points or whatever it is on Hamilton, but it's not as bad as it feels with Hamilton. It feels like every race is like Budapest at the minute, which is really weird. And I think that sort of makes me want to put him not as dramatically questionable as I first thought I was going to argue for him, but maybe put him in that same sort of window as Alonso, where there's a little bit of a mental thing going on for Lewis at the minute, and he's struggling with something, and it's playing on his performance, and it's not where he should be, but it's also not as terrible as it might seem if you look at his demeanour, generally speaking.
Yeah, I'm the same. I was in here ready to really drop him much lower down. But when you actually look at the numbers, we know Leclerc is a very, very quick qualifier. Obviously, Hamilton's also a very quick qualifier, and less than 2/10 between them. It's probably a bigger gap than I would have expected, but it's not disastrous. Like, points-wise, they're not that far away from each other. Yeah, I think somewhere around Alonso maybe is right. Like, they're both drivers that we have come to expect way more from and know they are capable of way more. But for whatever reason, this season is not working out for them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Definitely a better position than I thought I was going to put him in going into this.
Yeah, same. Which brings us on to McLaren. Obviously leading the constructors by about 1 million points.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
They basically already won the constructors. They're almost... In fact, they're more than double ahead of Ferrari, right?
Yep. Yeah, easily.
So
I think
they've already won it.
I think they can still take Red Bull's record of the most constructor points in the season as the way things are going.
Wow.
I mean, the team are going in top tier. There's no two ways about that.
Is this one of the few times we've actually put a team in top tier as well?
It might be, yeah. But
usually the team gets like solid and reliable and it's the driver. But I think this is one of the few occasions where the team might be top tier, but not necessarily the drivers.
As a team, I struggle to think of a criticism, to be honest. We'll see how the second half of the season plays out in terms of how they let their drivers race. But as things currently stand, I think they have to be there.
It's worked out for them so far, hasn't it? Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They've let them race and kept it relatively fair. And it's getting them wins and it's getting them 1-2s. I mean, they've already racked up, let me just look, 1, 2, 3, 7 1-2 finishers. And then of those that weren't 1-2 finishers, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are at least double podium finishers. Like in some sort of order, with them being first and third or second and third. So like, it's theirs to lose from a driver perspective. Like, they just have to go out there and drive, essentially. Like, it's only them making mistakes that is going to cost them points and podiums at this point, which you've kind of seen. Like, Oscar didn't have a great time at the start of the season in Australia and finished 9th, but that was just down to him having a bad time in those conditions. Like, ran off in the final corners, didn't he, and stuff like that. Like, it was just a bad time for him. I mean, Norris making mistakes like that in Canada. You know what? Canada is probably the one smudge on their performance this season as a team. They weren't
Yeah,
there, but even still,
I
Oscar was
mean,
finishing fourth, and Lando should technically probably finish fifth,
I
if
mean
he's
their
not.
next worst result is Oscar's ninth in
Yeah,
Australia, but you can't like begrudge him that because that was just conditions and the way it played out.
yeah,
So so qualifying 11.6 to Piastri, just a tenth ahead on average of Norris, which is the fourth closest teammate gap. 9.8 in terms of races also to Piastri. And as we know, they're only 9 points apart in the championship. I think we're going to put Piastri ahead of Norris. It's just a
yep.
question
I
of where
agree.
they go. Um,
I think right now I put Piastri as driving S tier as good as he's gonna drive at any point in his career, and Norris somewhere in that solid and reliable mix with Russell and Leclerc. Maybe a little bit behind the two of them, to be brutally honest with you. I mean, there could be an argument to put Norris down in doing just fine because
I think that would be too harsh.
he's the thing for me is I don't think Piastri's made any significant mistakes other than struggling with the car a little bit in Australia. He's not made any huge mistakes. He's raced to the limit. He's extracted the most out of it that he can, and he's made relatively intelligent decisions to essentially say, I can't win this. I'm going to push it as far as I can in an attempt to win it, but then know his limit and just take second. Like, he's raced a lot smarter than Norris. Norris has definitely gone behind the likes of Max and Piastri this season, and it's all fallen apart because he's like, I've got to get past this person, and it becomes desperate. I don't feel like I've seen that from Piastri. We came a little bit close in Hungary, maybe.
Yeah, Hungary and Austria, we've seen Piastri make mistakes trying to chase down Norris.
I think the thing with those mistakes, though, if you want to call them mistakes for Piastri, I think the thing with those is he's in second, he's comfortably in second, and he has just pushed it to the absolute limit, but known the moment he needs to back out of it in both those scenarios.
Just.
Oh, yeah, it's fractional, but those fractions are what make a world champion compared to some. Look at Norris in Canada fighting over fourth place.
Yeah.
That's the difference for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar wins in those moments, and yeah, it's marginal, and he's come very, very close to doing the same thing, but he's managed to just keep himself away from that and still come home second to Norris's first, and it's what keeps him leading the title week after week after week at the minute. And if he keeps doing that when he's behind Norris, and Norris keeps making the mistakes like in Canada when he's behind Oscar, you're going to end up in a scenario where Oscar wins this title, not comfortably, but by a decent enough margin that there's no pressure on him going into like the final races at places like Abu Dhabi.
I sort of think post Canada momentum has swung back Norris's way a little bit. I think all the mistakes I can think of Piastri making have been post Canada.
True.
He's made, he's not quite put the laps together in qualifying a couple of times. You've had those couple of lockups and stuff. I think there's a little bit of a narrative that like Piastri's this just machine that he's always perfect and Norris is the one making mistakes.
No,
I don't think that's quite
I don't think it's
true.
that far. I think it's just that he's better at knowing his limit and when to stop.
His racecraft is definitely better.
Yeah.
I
mean,
so
an argument I have as well to in terms of ranking them against each other is the whole strategy that Norris was on to get the win in Hungary is kind of because he lost out to Oscar at the start and dropped backwards. Like, it's that I think that result is definitely more fortune favouring Norris on that occasion than it was because you only have to look at how close Oscar got. I think if they'd have been racing side by side throughout that race on the same strategy, Piastri would have been the one that come out on top, because Piastri was genuinely faster, I think, in Hungary. Norris was just on a tyre saving mission. But again, that's an element of, if it does swing Norris's way somewhere later in the season and he takes the lead and then holds on to it, if that does happen, it will be results like that where he's not had the best start, swapped to an alternate strategy through advice of the team, and then made it work. Like, it almost worked for them in Belgium, but everybody managed to take the medium tyre to the end. But it was almost the same result for them in Belgium from Lando's side of the garage. So yeah, I think Oscar edges it, just because he's making less mistakes. But yeah, he's definitely not perfect. But then Max isn't perfect, and Max is in top tier. So
yeah. What if we do it this way then? Looking at the drivers we've got currently in S and A.
Yeah.
If any of those drivers were the teammate in the McLaren, which ones do you think they would beat and which ones do you don't think they wouldn't beat?
I think Norris would definitely beat Albon. Well, they would both beat Albon and Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Done. I think Russell and Leclerc would probably give Norris a run for his money. I find it hard to judge the Piastri situation because this is the first time I've seen him be this competitive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas Norris, I've definitely followed his junior career a lot closer, so I've seen him race against people like Russell and Albon. So I know how that went. But I would say that Norris is somewhere in amongst solid and reliables. I think Piastri has enough. I think he has enough raw pace to outdo Russell, even though Russell's consistent, and he has enough consistency to outdo Leclerc, even though Leclerc's got raw pace to outqualify him. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think Piastri is a much more rounded package than Russell and Leclerc, in the sense that Leclerc's possibly got better raw pace at times, but not the consistency in races, as we've seen for years with Leclerc. And Russell is the other way around, where he has flashes of raw pace in quality, but it's only occasional compared to him having consistency in race pace. So Oscar would just generally outqualify him and then beat him that way because he would be faster than him. Do you see where I'm going with that? Is that, like, he's a bit more rounded than both them, so I think Piastri would beat them both. Whereas I think Norris is more on their level of, he has the moments where he's the fastest in quali and it's incredible, but he also has weekends where he's not, same as Leclerc. He has runs of great race results and pace like the ones that he's on at the moment, but then he also has weekends like Canada where he makes mistakes, like George has done in the past. Like, I feel like Norris is in the mix with them two and Piastri is just above them. Even if you put him in solid and reliable, I'm going to argue that Piastri is the top of solid and reliable. If you won't let me put him in S tier, he's at least the leader of A tier.
How about
this? That's my case.
How about this? Piastri goes into top tier.
Okay. Pow. Done.
Norris goes between Russell and Leclerc.
I'm happy with that. And
then we could maybe... Then I'm going to bring up the question of whether Russell gets bumped up a tier or not.
No.
You think he's close enough to Norris that they both stay there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think looking at that feels right. I think the only person that would genuinely, at this moment in time, make Oscar genuinely sweat and struggle in that McLaren is Max Verstappen. Yes, anyone would go there and win races and be like a Bottas to your Hamilton, or a Massa to your Fernando, or your Barrichello to your Schumacher. Any one of those A drivers could go do that job in that McLaren. The only one that would create a Senna-Prost dynamic in my mind right now is Max Verstappen.
You
That's
know
why
what?
they're there
Yeah.
together.
Looking at these drivers, I would back Piastri against pretty much all of them except Verstappen. And I think we know it's tight against Norris. I think it'd be very tight against Russell. But if I had to put my money somewhere, it'd probably be on Piastri.
And that's why he's S tier, folks.
There we go. We've done it. I'm sure lots of you are screaming at your phones or computers right now, saying how wrong we are. What you can do is grab the Tiermaker link, which we will stick in the episode notes, I guess, and share around.
Yeah, in the description.
And you can make your own and send it to us. We'd love to see what you all come up with, and let us know which drivers you think we've got right and wrong. It's all very subjective, and I'm sure if we did all this again, we'd end up with slightly different results. But as it is, I feel all right about this. So, but yes, thank you for joining us this slightly longer than usual episode. We've got another week or two of summer break. We'll probably be back next week with something. TBC.
Depends on what the F1 world gives us.
Yeah, if anything happens. But at the very least, we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time to preview the Dutch Grand Prix. That's where we're going back to, isn't it? Yes, it is.
Zandvoort, yeah.
But until then, back at thegrid.com, you can find links to all of our stuff. But I think that's about it. So until then, thanks again for joining us, and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.